Welcome to City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Lisa Watson, president of City Club. For more than a century, City Club of Portland is where civic-minded people work together to make Portland and Oregon a better place for everyone to live and explore. We are gathered here today at Reynolds High School and are joined by thousands of Oregonians via X-Ray FM's radio station, KGW's website, Facebook feed and news app, and Open Signal's community media television stations. In addition to City Club's valued media partners, our corporate sponsors enable us to continue to put on the state's best civic programs week after week. I'd like to recognize City Club's winter sponsor, Portland General Electric, and thank them for their generous support. A special thank you also goes out to Kaiser Permanente for helping us put on today's program. Please join me in showing our appreciation to the sponsors, staff, and volunteers who have made this event possible. In just a moment, Antonia McSwain, a senior at Reynolds High School, will introduce Deborah Kafoury, the chair of the Multnomah County Commission. But before I invite Ms. McSwain to the stage, I want to introduce our moderator, Kevin Modica. Mr. Modica is the former assistant police chief with the Portland Police Bureau. He began working in criminal justice in 1982 and has spent much of his career addressing issues that impact youth and families, including gang violence and juvenile justice disparities. Currently, he's a board member for several organizations, including CASA, the Court-Appointed Special Advocates, which advocates for abused and neglected children under the protection of the court. In his retirement, he's also been serving as a legislative aide to Oregon State Senator Lou Frederick. As I've already mentioned, Antonia McSwain will introduce Chair Kafoury. Ms. McSwain was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and is an active member of her community. She serves on the Portland NAACP Youth Council, is president of her school's Black Student Union, and participates in her school's College Possible program. In the spring of 2017, she was selected as a member of the Multnomah Youth Commission. Please join me in welcoming Ms. McSwain and all of our guests.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm honored to be here today, despite the fact that I'm back at school on a day when class is not in session. I appreciate you all spending your Friday morning with us. I value spending my free time working with my fellow NYCers to make sure that youth voice is impactful to Multnomah County. Can my fellow youth commissioners please stand up? Thank you. Thank you for being here and making sure youth voice is at the table when it comes to local politics. Now I'm excited to introduce our Multnomah County Chair, Deborah Kafoury. At a young age, Deborah learned the difference one person can make in our community after her mother opened their home to women escaping domestic violence or families with nowhere to sleep or to share a meal together. Chair Kafoury began her political career when she was elected class president in the 5th grade at Irvington Elementary. She furthered her public service representing North and Northeast Portland in the Oregon House of Representatives and served 2 years as the House Minority Leader. In 2008, voters elected Deborah to the Multnomah County Commission. She was elected county chair in 2014, where she has carried her passion for fostering safe environments for children and families to thrive into her policy priorities. Deborah lives in Southeast Portland with her husband, Nick Blosser, and their 3 children, Alexander, Jacob, and Anna. Please join me in welcoming Chair Deborah Kafoury to the stage.
Good morning. It is so good to be here at Reynolds High School, which has a special place in my heart. But in order to explain why, I need to go back 4 years. On June 9th of 2014, I signed the oath of office as Multnomah County Chair. For nearly 6 years before, I'd been the Multnomah County Commissioner for District 1. That's the western edge of Multnomah County, from downtown Portland to Stovey's Island to my neighborhood near the Selwood Bridge. But as chair, I have the responsibility to serve every corner of this county, from Sylvan Hill all the way to the Bonneville Dam. And on my first day as county chair, I learned exactly what that meant. I was getting ready for work, getting my 3 kids out the door, when the sheriff called me just a few minutes after receiving a 911 call from Reynolds. About 5 minutes after 8, a student had fired shots inside the boys' locker room at this school. Later, I learned that the shooter wounded Todd Rispler, a PE teacher. Through his sheer determination, Mr. Rispler managed to make it to the main office to put the school on lockdown. But the shooter shot and killed Emilio Hoffman. Emilio was 14, a freshman at this school, just 1 year older than my son, Alexander. I got off the phone with the sheriff, my mind was racing and my heart was aching. I didn't even have the official county chair email account set up yet, but I emailed all county staff, letting them know that anyone who had a connection to Reynolds who needed to go should just go. And then in my first formal act, I sent county crisis counselors to the Wood Village parking lot where parents were reuniting with their kids. Within hours, our counselors and our incredible partners opened a crisis drop-in center at the Mount Hood Community College gym. That evening, I went to Emilio's vigil. Walking into a room full of strangers is, on my best day, difficult. But walking in on the worst day of those strangers' lives, that's even harder. I didn't know many of the faces that I know now. It was hard not to feel self-conscious, like an intruder. But I knew that when crisis hits, Multnomah County has to be there for Emilio and his family, for his classmates, his teachers, and his neighbors. Because through that oath of office, this community became my family. And it was clear to everyone at the Baptist church that night, the first responders, the sheriff, the teachers, the neighbors, that our community has a tremendous power when we come together. I vowed then to focus on expanding mental health services in schools and advocating for common sense gun laws. And every day that I see another headline like Parkland, Florida, or Roseburg, Oregon, it brings me back to that day in June, and it makes me mad that we aren't doing more. I try to be hopeful, but that's hard when Congress is MIA and the president will promise a room full of survivors that he's going to take action, and the next day turn around and tell the NRA that they have nothing to worry about. But while the president is tweeting, Oregon is acting. 2 weeks ago, Governor Kate Brown signed a bill that I championed, closing a loophole which will protect survivors of domestic violence from guns. But I know that we're not doing enough. It is fitting that we are here at Reynolds High School because it is the students, not the adults, who are leading the fight for a better future. I want to thank all the students that are here today. You understand, no matter how tough it is, we have to take care of one another. This morning, I'm looking forward to talking about the work that Multnomah County is doing, including here in East County, where our strong partnerships have led to new investments and collaborations. Gresham Mayor Shane Bemis, Fairview Mayor Ted Tosserud, Troutdale Mayor Casey Ryan, and Wood Village Mayor Timothy Clark, thank you all for your partnership. Thank you to all my friends who are here in the state legislature. And I want to thank Reynolds School Superintendent Linda Florence and Principal Wade Blakely for this beautiful space. Will all the elected officials in the room please stand up? Let's thank them. It's not an easy time to be a public servant, and you all deserve our thanks and gratitude. 6 months ago, we faced a challenge that we'd never seen before. In the middle of Labor Day weekend, in the middle of the night, the sheriff called to say that a wildfire was roaring through the Columbia Gorge. A teenager playing with fireworks had started a fire that's closed Interstate 84, jumped the Columbia River, and forced families in Dodson, Warrendale, Larch Mountain, East Corbett, La Tourelle, and Bridal Veil to run for their lives. Smoke and ash settled over our entire community. The emergency response was swift, and I could not be more proud because from that first 911 call, Multnomah County pulled our community together like the safety net we are. Sheriff Mike Reese's deputies and young volunteers went door to door to safely evacuate every single household. We set up an emergency operations center in Troutdale. Animal Services worked with sound equine options to load up hundreds of horses, llamas, and goats. County Human Services and the Red Cross opened shelters. Our health department advised us on air quality and managing our stress. We informed the press, hosted members of Congress, and held community meetings. And we somehow managed the flood of support that poured in from people who love, love, love the Columbia Gorge. After the fire spread 12 miles overnight, I drove with Governor Brown to Multnomah Falls. I still get a lump in my throat remembering how relieved I was to see the Gresham and Portland firefighters who had worked through the night to save our historic, beloved lodge. Of course, there was one person who pulled in just in front of me, Commissioner Laurie Stegman. For those of you who know Laurie, this will come as no surprise, for her passion for East County has driven policy, debate, and dollars to this district. Thank you, Laurie. The Eagle Creek fire has left scars. We remain on high alert for landslides in burned areas. The tourism season was cut short, and Gorge residents are worried sick about the impacts of crowds coming back into this now fragile environment. But through strong partnerships and smart investments, we will recover. And Multnomah County will be there. Showing up on the toughest days is what this job is all about. And the county stays, from crisis through recovery to stability. Driving to work, I'm always struck by the construction cranes dotting the skyline. You can literally feel Portland booming. And yet thousands of people are being left behind. 1/3 of households in Multnomah County struggle to meet their basic needs. Families living on the edge never know if a sudden rent increase or illness or car accident will cost them their job or be that last domino that will actually push them from their home into the street. Last year, 30,000 people stood on that edge. 30,000. That's a city the size of Redmond. But through the Joint Office of Homeless Services, they got the help they needed to stay in their housing, get back into housing from homelessness, or to access basic shelter. Unfortunately, decades of federal disinvestment in affordable housing have left local governments feeling like we are in this alone. But by working together, the City of Portland and Multnomah County have invested $100 million over the last 2 years to respond to this housing crisis. And I want to thank Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler for standing so solidly with me on this. And just last month, we asked our state leaders to earmark $5 million in emergency support to provide basic shelter for families all across Oregon. And the legislature came through. Thank you. But ending this housing crisis requires more than just emergency shelter. We need to find new money to invest in supportive housing. We have learned that supportive housing is the handhold that can help someone stabilize. Sometimes that means housing with addiction treatment. Sometimes it means housing with counseling support for people with persistent mental illness. We know this strategy works. So in October, Portland Commissioner Nick Fish, Mayor Wheeler, and I led a broad coalition of partners in charting the course that will get us there. we committed to creating 2,000 supportive housing units over the next 10 years. This year, we will also establish a dedicated supportive housing investment fund for people in our streets who need more than just keys to an apartment. They need housing that is connected to the services that will save their lives. I'm also working with Mayor Wheeler and Metro President Tom Hughes to identify unallocated resources flowing in from our local tourism taxes to invest not just in key infrastructure and tourism, but in getting people off the streets. We're always working with our partners to find new creative solutions, which brings me to Bobby Weinstock. For more than 28 years, and as long as I've known him, Bobby's been helping seniors stay in their homes through his job with Northwest Pilot Project. But over the past few years, Bobby's seen more and more seniors standing on the edge. Their monthly Social Security checks used to cover the rent when rent was $350. Now, the cheapest place they can find is $700. In the past, we would expect the federal government to step up. Instead, Congress has cut budgets, making the waiting list for help even longer. Bobby believed that a local voucher program could help cover the gap, and Bobby was right. Last month, Sharon Newell became one of the first seniors to receive one of our long-term rent vouchers. Sharon has MS, chemical sensitivities, and autoimmune issues that can give her seizures. She could never find housing that didn't make her sick. And yet her Social Security check was never going to stretch far enough to pay rent on a healthy apartment she needed for herself and her beloved therapy dog, Gracie. Sharon was ready to give up. Then, thanks to Bobby and the voucher, today she has an apartment all to herself, and she's getting her health back, free from the stress of having to choose between rent or pet food or medicine. This, Sharon says, was a lifesaver. And thanks to fresh funding, this voucher program may one day save hundreds more lives. I am pleased to announce that Meyer Memorial Trust has matched the county's $350,000 investment with $150,000 of its own to improve and grow this program. After the shooting at this school, we sent more mental health professionals into the field. And today we're serving 1,600 kids in 6 school districts. We just began providing support for teachers and case management to kids in kindergarten through 3rd grade. We'll spend $1.3 million for mental health in schools this year. Few problems are tougher for individuals and families than a mental health crisis. Last year, Multnomah County's 24-hour crisis services reached more than 80,000 contacts through our call center, our mobile outreach team, and our urgent walk-in clinic. 80,000. With all that we're doing, it's important that we know what's working, to learn what we're doing right, find the gaps, and close them. And I want to thank Commissioner Sharon Myron for spearheading an analysis of our mental health system, and I'm looking forward to the recommendations from our nationally recognized contractor. As an emergency room doctor, Sharon brings a passion for quality improvement and practical solutions. Thank you, Sharon. The more we understand what people need, the faster they can stabilize and get their lives back on track. Take the LEAD program, or Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. Instead of sending someone with a low-level drug offense straight to jail, the most expensive options, police can redirect that person to a case manager to provide the treatment and mental health care they need. The results are promising. 70% of the 77 people enrolled are active in the program. Many have resolved outstanding warrants and citations, and more than half have not been rearrested. Changing how we think and use jails can change lives. In October, we were named one of 8 counties nationally to receive a $2 million MacArthur Safety and Justice Challenge grant. With our partners, we are working to develop transitional housing for African American justice-involved women to get the connection and stability they need. And this program will reduce over-incarceration and racial disparities that we know exist in our system. We could never do this kind of work alone. Multnomah County relies on this community. We partner formally with more than 650 nonprofit agencies, and to all I say thank you, thank you, thank you. Without your passion, compassion, and expertise, we could not do our jobs. Another lesson for me has been how important peer support can be. When Brittany Picardo was 14, she sprained her back and was prescribed opioids. Was treating a young, healthy person with such powerful drugs ever a good idea? I don't think so. We know now that like the millions of others who were sold a bottle of opioids, Brittany's life spiraled from the experience. She became addicted, dropped out of school, and grew estranged from her family. But then she connected to the sponsor she could call at 3 a.m. just to talk, to a community of people in recovery, and to her mom. Today at 21, Brittany is 4 years clean, working full-time, and planning on returning to school. Congratulations to Brittany. When corporations recklessly promote a highly addictive product that destroys lives, we need to hold them accountable. Last year, Multnomah County filed a lawsuit against the manufacturers of the prescription drugs that have fueled this crisis. And we've been trying aggressively to limit the damage. We changed how we prescribed opioids in our own clinics, and in the last 2 years, our dental clinics have cut the number of opioids by 50% just by working with their patients. We changed how our partners prescribe. Dr. Paul Lewis, our Tri-County Health Officer, worked with Kaiser, OHSU, Providence, Legacy, Tuality, Adventist, and insurance companies to sign onto new prescribing guidelines. And we changed what the community can do. Multnomah County led the legislative effort to make the life-saving drug naloxone available to the general public. To date, 2,536 people have been rescued by naloxone in Multnomah County, many of them literally brought back to life. That moment between life and death changes everything. It opens a door to help. People are often ready to enter treatment, to talk to a peer in recovery, to believe that their life is worth fighting for. We need to make sure that that door is open. So mark your calendars for April 13th, because we're going to be developing more local solutions. We're partnering with Lions for Life in the first of its kind Opioids and Addiction Summit, which will bring together the 3 sheriffs, 3 DAs, and 3 boards of Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington counties to hammer out solutions that we can adopt now. Multnomah County's first job is to be there in a crisis, but the county also provides essential infrastructure to ensure that those services are available. Since I've taken office, we've led a surge in infrastructure investment. We built a brand new East County courthouse in Rockwood. We built a new Selwood Bridge. And we are now building a new central courthouse and a health department headquarters. We're making unprecedented investments in East County roads to make neighborhoods safer, more livable, and to support Fairview, Troutdale, and Wood Village businesses. And just last month, Commissioner Jessica Vega-Peterson led a push in Salem to secure funding to begin the early stages of retrofitting the Burnside Bridge. Commissioner Vega-Peterson is leading our efforts to ensure the Burnside survives a major earthquake and provides a lifeline between the east and west sides of Multnomah County. Together, all these capital projects represent more than $750 million in new infrastructure. And along the way, we put workers at the center of our efforts because these projects are also a pathway to a long-lasting career in the building trades. In other words, a pathway to a sustainable life. In all of our major construction projects, we set goals to ensure that we have a strong workforce and that the small businesses hired reflect our diverse community. But the industry has not always welcomed women and people of color. So to help bridge these communities to family wage jobs, our first step was a partnership with Construction Apprenticeship and Workforce Solutions, or CAWS, to grow pre-apprenticeship training programs. These programs give entry-level workers the skills and equipment needed to be an apprentice. They also connect them directly with contractors. Echo Dahl, a single mother, found the pre-apprenticeship program at Oregon Tradeswoman and started work. But she wanted more for her family. And through the CAWS program, she met Gordon from General Sheet Metal at a county hiring event. Gordon hired Echo. Since then, she has nearly doubled her salary and was able to buy a house and stabilize her family. I'm very pleased to announce that yesterday, the Board of County Commissioners took a second important step. We voted to set aside 1% of county construction funding to a new Construction, Diversity, and Equity Fund. This fund will support the development of pre-apprenticeship and workforce retention programs for low-income community members, women, and people of color. Commissioner Loretta Smith knows something about this. She has long championed for youth through Summer Works, a program that gives young people their first paycheck and the work skills and connections that lead to internships and college. Thank you, Commissioner Smith. I have loved almost everything about this job. Even on the toughest days, I get to work with the best people. Multnomah County employees who every day do quietly amazing things. Daniela Schlechter-Keenan is one of them. Most of her patients at Multnomah County's North Portland Health Clinic don't know this physician assistant's amazing life story. All her patients know is that Daniela takes remarkable care of them. She sees entire families to make the most of appointments. She delivers groceries. She advocates tirelessly for them. In January, Daniela was named one of Portland's best healthcare providers in a survey of her peers by Portland Monthly magazine. And more importantly, in part because of her advocacy, OHSU reversed its 30-year policy and will no longer consider immigration status for transplant lists. Today, a young mother of 4 is on a liver transplant list because of Daniela and her Multnomah County team. Thank you, Daniela, for your service. Having a workforce with diverse voices and experiences makes it possible for Multnomah County to truly reach and represent our community. It's just as important that our employees feel that they're supportive and in a place where they are safe and can thrive. We know we have a lot of work to do, and I want to thank the employees who've shared their stories and are working alongside us to build a workforce equity strategy that can make Multnomah County better, rooting out racism and making us the fair and just place that we want to be. I know that nationally, things feel troubling, like we're falling apart. But in Multnomah County, we're better than that. We value each other's perspectives, we listen to different points of view, and we find solutions. I'm excited for this next year, and I'm thankful that we're in it together. Thank you for allowing me to join you on this amazing journey. Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning.
So I've got to pay the bills first. For our broadcast audience, this is City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Kevin Modica, former Assistant Chief with the Portland Police Bureau. With me today is Deborah Kafoury, the Chair of Multnomah County Commission. Would you give the chair a hand again? So, Chair, we're going to have a conversation. All right, may I call you Deborah? All right. In this conversation, I'm going to ask you several questions. Some of it's going to involve a lightning round, and then we'll have questions from the audience. So, the first question I'm going to ask you is, can you give us an update on the sale of Wapato Jail?
I've never had that question before. Wow. Well, we have an offer right now on the jail, and we will know by the end of the month whether that offer is coming through. I had been on the job, the day I started, this jail had been open for 5 years, or I should say it had been built for 5 years but never opened, and it has been something that I've been working on since the first day I arrived, trying to sell the jail. We don't need it. It's expensive. And what we do need is to get the jail sold, get it back on the tax rolls, and making an investment for the people of the state of Multnomah County.
Thank you. So now I'm going to ask you for a little clarity on that. What is your personal hope for the use of that facility?
As I said, what I think the best use of this facility is to sell it and get it back on the tax rolls. It has been really an albatross around our neck since it was opened. There was never the money to build it, or to use it, and there's never been the need for it. We have open dorms in Inverness Jail, and we don't need the space. There has been discussion about a lot of other uses for this jail. It's in an industrial sanctuary. The land use laws don't allow any other uses, and I just think that having it back on the tax rolls is the best thing for us.
Thank you. Next question. Multnomah County is known for Sun Schools. What are you doing to meet the needs of all the people who want a Sun School in their neighborhood? And of particular interest is, you mentioned in last year's State of the County, different support for Sun Schools and strengthening the infrastructure around that. Can you comment on that?
Pleased to. Everyone loves their Sun Schools. It is really one of our proudest accomplishments as a county, is bringing partners in the community into schools to work with kids so that they can achieve great things. When we look to open new Sun Schools, we prioritize where the need is the greatest. And we know that there's a lot of need. There's been especially a lot of need in East County. And of the new Sun Schools that we've opened, since I've been on the board, the vast majority have been in East County where the need is and where the families and the kids best utilize those services.
Thank you. Are you worried at all that the county is at risk of losing federal funds for core services by taking a stand as a sanctuary county, specifically surrounding the DACA issues?
What I'm most worried about is the kids and families in our community who are scared every day because they don't know whether their husband, their father, their grandmother will be coming home from work, whether they will be picked up when they call the police because they need to get assistance. That's what worries me the most. And I know that as a Multnomah County Commissioner, member of our team, our values ensure that we want to take care and protect everyone in our community. We value the voices of different experiences, and we will not be bullied by a federal government that is racist and irrational.
Thank you for the applause. The official timekeeper gave me 5 minutes 3 minutes ago, so I may steal a little time. This is a tough one, Chair, but I'm obligated to ask you this question. Multnomah County's just come through a series of meetings where employees have talked about institutional racism. Some of your board meetings have been open with questions challenging your leadership. What is Multnomah County doing to move forward? What are you doing to move forward? What is your contrition?
First of all, I want to thank the Multnomah County employees who have come forward to share their stories. And we are taking those very seriously. We know that institutional racism exists at Multnomah County, and we are committed as a Board of Commissioners to ensuring that Multnomah County is a safe and welcoming place for people to work. We've taken several steps. The first is we've immediately taken all complaints and they go straight to the COO. We have a no wrong door policy. So if people have a situation they want to talk about, those complaints go straight to the top. The second is that we're working alongside our employees to develop a workforce equity plan. That plan will be voted on by the Multnomah County Board of Commissioners on April the 5th. It talks about retention, recruitment, and how we can ensure that we start getting at the root of the causes of racism and eradicate that. The third thing that we've done is we've hired a professional national consultant to advise us on HR practices to ensure that our HR practices are proactive and not reactive. We know we have a lot of work to do, but this is an incredibly important issue. Our board is strongly in favor of moving forward, and I believe that working with our employees and our community, we're going to get there.
So I have 1 minute. We have 1 minute. I'm glad you're smiling. I was going to ask for a little clarity on that. You know, as leaders in the public space, many times we make decisions or do things that are not the best. How do you feel you've played a role in any of the institutional issues at Multnomah County?
I try to be a courageous and compassionate leader, but sometimes I fall short. And I'm working every day to try to be the leader that my community needs and deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to transition now and go to some questions from our audience. And as a reminder, everyone watching or listening today is welcome to ask a question. If you've written a question on an index card, hold it high for the City Club staff to collect. If you're listening, you can also submit questions via Twitter using the hashtag FridayForum. I'd like to begin the questions with 2 high school students. The first is a senior from Reynolds High School, Yesenia Ramos Pacheco. Yesenia is an active member of the National Guard, a youth commissioner on the Youth Against Violence Subcommittee, and a member of the Welcoming Inclusive Sanctuary City Task Force for the City of Portland. Yesenia, are you here?
Every day, ICE agents are separating families in our community. In Multnomah County, we have students who are either undocumented, have undocumented parents. Groups are currently working to repeal Oregon's 30-year-old sanctuary city law, prohibiting the use of state and local resources to enforce federal immigration laws. What is the county doing to ensure the safety of immigrant communities?
We are proudly a sanctuary county in a sanctuary state. When our current president first issued his executive order, I heard directly from our employees who are out in our community about the fear and the repercussions of this executive order. Moms weren't bringing their kids in for doctor's appointments. Women weren't showing up to get restraining orders against abusive spouses. People were hiding, and that's not okay. We immediately went to our community partners who work with families across the county and asked, what could we do? And we heard from them that they needed support. So we quickly got financial resources on the ground to assist those families in preparing for the future. We're committed to continuing this investment, and we're committed to working with our partners. Instead of telling people in the community what they want and need, we're asking for their involvement in how we shape our future.
Thank you, Yesenia. The next question comes from Faisal Osman. Faisal is a 16-year-old sophomore at Madison High School. Faisal is also a youth commissioner and is the co-chair of the Education Youth Voice Subcommittee. Faisal, are you here? Thank you.
Thank you for sharing how the 2014 Reynolds High School shooting impacted you personally and professionally, the service response from Multnomah County, and future policy that leads to a reduction in gun violence against our youth and families. What do you see as the county's continued role in keeping students safe in schools given the context of shootings?
As I said, I'm a mother. I have 3 kids who I send to school every day, hoping and praying for their safety. It should not have to be this way. Unfortunately, Multnomah County is preempted at the state level from making a lot of the changes that we want and need to make. So I'm adding my voice to all of your voice, and especially you, the students, who make us so proud with the work that you're doing. We need a change. We need to demand that our kids feel safe in their schools, and if the people that we've elected to do it won't, we need to get them out.
Yesenia and Faisal, thank you for your questions and participating. So we have some index cards. There's 3 of them. So nobody bought pens and cards. Yes, you're doing a great job. So the first question off the index card here is, are there any county programs or plans for such in support of employment for immigrants and refugees? And I'm going to expand on that a little bit. You mentioned the capital works projects. Besides the set-aside money, what's the infrastructure and the support for getting immigrants, refugees, and people of color in the workforce, and maybe even stimulating them to become business owners?
This has been a priority for us. We know that with the huge investments that we've made in infrastructure and the big purchasing power that we have as a county, we spend a lot of money buying things. And it is fair and equitable that everyone in our community should benefit from these tax dollars. So we, actually I'm very proud, and it's kind of geeky, but our purchasing department wins awards every year because they're so fabulous. And they've just started a new online portal so small businesses can register, and then we will contact them. We get the message, push the dollars out into the community, letting people know when things come up so that they can participate. You know, it just doesn't happen by accident. We know that, and if we continue to do things the way that they've done in the past, we know that it doesn't rise all boats. So what we need to do, and what we have been putting a very concerted effort, is to making sure that everyone has a chance to succeed, and everyone has a chance to participate in our booming economy. It takes effort. It takes a lot of effort. The dollars that we are going to invest in the fund will help a lot will help let us be proactive, get out into the community to get people from wherever they are and help lift them up and get them the jobs in our community.
Thank you. This next question is a tough one. It came from an audience. I perceived that it came from a student. Since you and other electeds have spoken so much about the occurrence on June 10th, why have I, as a youth who was there when 2 of my classmates lost their lives, never saw more involvement from you to rally youth for gun control? Why do you only listen now that it's in the headlines? And that's obviously a perception, and would appreciate your comment.
I have been advocating for common sense gun laws as far back as I can remember. And I really appreciate that question because I have tried, and I know that many people in this room have tried to influence the state and the federal level to make changes. And what we've learned is that our voices aren't enough. We need you. We need you, the students, the voices of tomorrow, to join with us. I think sometimes adults feel like, oh, we can handle it for the kids, but it's not true. The reality is you guys are going to make the difference, and you're going to have to lead the way. I am proud to join with you in strengthening our gun laws to make sure that you never have to go through another experience like you did on June 10th.
Thank you. Deborah, we have 4 minutes, so we got to make this exciting. What is the plan to have the shelter open for children and families again?
So we had to close our family homeless shelter last month. We knew that the roof had been leaking, but once tiles started falling from the ceiling, I knew it was time to close the shelter. The safety of the families who are living there was my #1 priority. And it wasn't an easy decision, but I knew that it was one that had to be done. We immediately moved those families into motels, which is not an optimal solution, but it's better than obviously living on the streets. Looking forward, we are trying to assess what's the best way to move forward, whether the shelter can be repaired to be used again, or whether we need to find another option. But a shelter is not a solution. And families, no family in our community should be sleeping on the streets or in a shelter. There is no way that a child is going to have a good day at school, that a parent is going to be productive at work if they've had to sleep in a room with 130 other folks. So we had a campaign over the holidays, and we're going to do it again, calling on our partners in the community, people who own a multiplex or somebody who just has a room to rent. We need you to contact us and let us know that you're willing to rent a place to one of our families. Many of these families have jobs. Some of them have vouchers. They just need an open unit. Over the holidays, we housed over 150 people, and we know that there are many, many more waiting. So I encourage all of you to get on social media, call your friends and relatives, and let them know if you have a place to rent, call us and let us know. Thank you.
We have 2 minutes. Are you ready for a little lightning? So I'm just going to give you a word, and you're going to have about 5 seconds to respond. Bridges.
Burnside Bridge, Lifeline.
Diversity.
Important to our community, worth celebrating.
Families.
The heart of our community. No family should sleep on the streets or in a shelter.
Police and sheriffs.
thankful for their support every day and looking forward to working with them to make our community a safer and more equitable place.
Succession planning.
There are a lot of folks at Multnomah County who are getting ready to retire. We'll have a lot of job openings. So students, sharpen your resumes. We need your young talent at Multnomah County.
Thank you. So we're at time, but one last question. This was an index card. It said, what are you looking forward to in the next year, or what's next? And my version of the question is, what is your now?
We have a lot of work to do at Multnomah County. Not all of our employees feel comfortable coming to work every day, feel that their beliefs are respected and that they are being able to be their true selves at work. And that is my #1 priority this year, is to make sure that our workforce is strong, because if people are not feeling comfortable and proud of the work that they're doing, they're not going to be able to translate that into providing the best services that they can for Multnomah County. This is a wonderful, amazing, amazing community. I am proud to work for you and with you every day, and I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Chair Kafoury, thank you for your time, your comments, and your commitment to this opportunity. And thank the audience. We'll turn it back over to the moderator.
Our time is up today, and we need to pause the discussion for now, but as always, we hope this is the beginning of even more in-depth conversations for each of you. Please join me in thanking our panel for being here today, and also I'd like to thank the Friday Forum Committee for all of your hard work putting today's program together.